So last question, our last thing we're going to look at this week is section 3.5, part 2, a little bit more with y equals mx plus b. Yes, question?
Me? Oh, I was going to ask if it's okay if I can use pen.
You can use pen if you want to write your notes.
Okay.
That's fine with me. All right, so we've studied two different forms this week. What's the first type of equation we looked at? It wasn't called slope-intercept form. Standard form. Standard form is something like this. Right? It's got maybe 2x plus 3y equals 6. Okay? That's standard form. What does slope-intercept form look like? Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so on your guided notes, okay, where it says slope-intercept form, first blank, on that line, put y equals mx plus b. What's the m?
Slope.
M is the slope.
Yep.
And what does slope mean? Like, you don't have to give me a fancy definition. Just what does slope mean? The steepness. Okay, it's how steep a line is. What if you have a line that's flat? What's the slope?
0.
It's 0. What if you have a line that's vertical? Undefined. Vertical is the only line that doesn't have a number for a slope. It has a word. Undefined. So M is slope. What's B?
The Y-intercept.
B is the Y-intercept. What does that mean?
Where the line intercepts the y-axis.
Right. It's basically where a line crosses the axis. If it's the Y-intercept, it's where it crosses the Y-axis. X-intercept is where it crosses
The x-axis.
X-axis. We don't really use the X-intercept in slope-intercept form. Right? The only time we do X-intercept stuff is usually when we do standard form. Okay? All right, so again, make sure you're under M and B. If you don't have what those mean, if you forgot, just put them on those lines. All right, so we know how to graph equations in standard form. Plug in 0 for x, then plug in 0 for y, and get the two dots. Slope-intercept form, you don't have to do that. Okay? We're not going to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. We've got 3 steps. I'm going to show you what those are. So step 1, if you want to graph an equation in slope-intercept form, make sure it's in slope-intercept form. Make sure it's y equals mx plus b. If it's not, fix it. Get the y by itself. Okay, I'm going to come right back to that. That's a problem that is not in slope-intercept form. Y is not by itself. That's another problem where it's not by itself. Maybe we'll do one where it is too. But we've practiced a lot where it is. So we're going to try somewhere where it is. Step 2. Once you get your equation in Y-intercept form, put a dot on the Y-intercept. How do you know what the Y-intercept is? It's that right there. So on the Y-axis, you're going to put a dot on B. If B is positive, which way would you go? On the Y-axis.
Right.
Oh, up.
Up.
Oh.
Remember, the Y-intercept is somewhere here. So if it's positive, you go up. If it's negative,
You're down.
you go down. Okay, that's the first thing. Put a dot. Put a dot on the Y-intercept. The last step. Once you put a dot where the Y-intercept is, you need another point. How many points did we say you need at a minimum to draw a line? 2. You need 2 points. How do you get a second point? Use the slope. Okay, you're going to use the slope. The slope is usually going to be written as a fraction. If it's not, how can you always make a number a fraction? You can always put a 1 under it. Right? So we're going to make the slope a fraction. Does anybody remember, what are the 2 words that we use for slope? They both begin with R. rise over run. From the y-intercept, you're going to go up or down a certain amount, that's the rise, and then you're going to go left or right, that's the run. The slope is going to tell you where to go from this point, it's like directions, to get to the next point.
Is the rise ever down?
It could be if it's negative, yep.
Oh.
The run is always going to be to the right. The only time I'm not going to go to the right is if I'm out of room on the left, on the edge of my paper. Then I have to go to the left. Okay, but I'm always either going to go up and right or down and right. Okay. So from the y-intercept, use the slope to help you find another point on the line. And what I usually do is I use the slope a couple times. It's almost going to look like we're making a set of stairs. We're going to get a few points, and then we connect them. You guys already said this. If you want to write it below number 3, you can squeeze it in there. But I asked you, how do you make a number a fraction? If it's not, you said put it over 1. And for negative slope, we're always going down and to the right. Positive slope, I can write that in, up and to the right. Question?
Can you ever make a negative a fraction? Can you put a 1 under a negative number to make it a fraction?
You could, but we're always going to keep the negative in the top. Okay, we're always going to keep the negative in the top. This is not wrong, but we're going to do it like this.
If you have to make it a fraction, if you have a negative 4, can you put a 1 under?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So if you had a negative 2 and that wasn't a fraction, you can just go like that and make it a fraction. You can always put a 1 under anything. Yep.
What if the bottom number is negative?
We're not going to do it that way. We're always going to, if the bottom number was negative, we're going to move the negative to the top.
Okay.
Right? We're always going to keep the negative in the top. Right? So that's why if the negative is always in the top, you're always going to go to the right, because the bottom is always going to be positive. Your only choice is down and right or up and right. Only time I won't go right, like I've already said, is if I'm on the edge of my paper and I don't have any room. But if I don't have any room, that probably means I didn't plan my graph well. I put it too close to the edge. I should have moved it over a little bit. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, let's look at this one. All right, so they're asking me to do a couple things here. They want me to graph the equation, and then for some reason they're also asking me to find the X-intercept. Okay, so we know how to do that. We can find that after if they want us to. Now, that's standard form. In this section, we're practicing getting y by itself. So is y by itself here? No. What would be the first thing that I could move to the other side to start to get y by itself? So we want to move the things that are furthest away.
The 6x.
The 6x. Is that a positive 6x or a negative?
Positive.
It's a positive. So I'm going to subtract and subtract. That's gone. Now on the left side, all we have is 3y. And remember, I'm trying to get mx plus b. So what should I put on the right side now?
Negative 6x minus 12.
Perfect. He wouldn't have been wrong if he said 12 minus 6x, but we're trying to write the number with x first. So the number with x is a negative 6. That's right there. 12 has a negative. 12 has a negative. So now, are we y equals mx plus b?
Yes. Oh.
Is y by itself?
No.
No. We're kind of in the middle. Now we're nothing. We're not standard form. That's what we started with. We're not slope-intercept form. We're kind of in between the two. So now we got to finish it to get it in slope-intercept. What's the last thing I don't want next to y? Yep.
3.
3. And how do I get rid of the 3? Divide. Where do I divide by 3?
Both sides.
Both sides, everywhere. Here, here, here. Now, once we do that, we're going to have slope-intercept form. What's 3 divided by 3?
Y.
Yeah, 1y So that's gone. What's -6 divided by 3?
-2.
And what's next to that -2?
X.
X. What's -12 divided by 3?
-4.
Wait, why do you divide it by like both?
You have to divide by 3 everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Okay, when you're trying to get y by itself, if you want to divide, you can do it, but you have to do it in all 3 spots. Question?
So I thought like you were just supposed to substitute the y for 0 and the x for 0.
So if they want you to graph it in standard form, yes, you can absolutely do that.
This is graphing in.
This is graphing in slope-intercept,
Oh.
so it's a little different. But you could have a question just like that on the test, and if all the directions said was graph, you could do it exactly the way you just said. Right? For this particular problem, I think this is a little bit more work. I think it's easier to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. But they wanted us to get y by itself.
Does it say that? Just graph the linear equation.
So yeah, technically on the test, I would probably say graph the linear equation in y equals mx plus b. That's what the directions would say on the test. So if you got this, I give you half credit because you got y by itself. Now we have to graph it. Yep.
But is it still considered standard form?
This is slope-intercept form. What we started with was standard form. We changed it to slope-intercept. And if you're like, well, why did we change it? We could have done it without doing that. Yes, you're right, we could have. But later in the year, we're going to have to change it to y equals. You'll see why later in the year. So we're just practicing getting y by itself. Yeah.
But then how do you get to the x-intercept?
Let's graph it now, and I'll show you what happens. So, graphing, first step. Make sure your equations are y equals mx plus b. Check. Graph the y-intercept. What's the y-intercept in this problem?
-4.
So how do I get to -4 on the y-axis? Up 4, down 4?
Down 4.
Down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that enough information to draw the line?
No.
No, we got to get another point. What do we use to get one more point? From that point, use the slope. Use the slope. What's my slope here?
-2x.
What's the slope? Be careful.
-2.
-2. Now, it said you should have the slope as a fraction. So how do you make -2 a fraction? Yeah. You can always put something over 1. All right? Now, the top number is your what? In slope. Top number is rise. Bottom number? Run. This is rise. This is run. So these are directions from the y-intercept, how to get to the next point. Which way is it telling me to go from this point first? It's telling me to go down how many? Down 2. And then what?
Over 1.
Which way is over? To the what? To the right. Down 2, right 1. So I'm going to go down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. Now, Kelsey had a good question. She said, how do we get to the x-intercept? Well, I'm out of room here. I can't go down and to the right anymore. I'm at the edge. So what could I do to go back towards the x-intercept?
Right.
Following this pattern of dots. Yeah.
You can go from the top dot and go up to the left one.
Yeah, just make sure you follow the same pattern. Do that part first, and then go up 2, left 1. Up 2, left 1. Look what you just found. You just found the x-intercept. And you can do it as many times as you want. But this is the only time I go up and to the left. It's because I ran out of room on the right. Okay, I was out of space. You'll know if you go the wrong way because, let's say, you had all these dots like that, and you put a dot in and you go like this. Well, you can tell it didn't line up straight with all the other dots. So that's in the wrong spot. It should look like that. And now draw your line. Yeah.
Okay, wait, where do you get the -2 and 1 from?
The negative 2 and 1?
Yeah.
The negative 2 came from right there.
Okay. And then you just made a fraction?
And we made it a fraction.
And so,
Yep.
wait, why did you do that?
We made it a fraction because when you graph a line, your slope has to be a
Well,
fraction.
yeah, but like, why did you even like take it down and make it into a fraction?
So that way I could see what the rise was and what the run was. If you just write it like this, there's no fraction.
Okay.
So to see rise and run, you have to have a top and a bottom.
Okay.
Yep. So now, yeah.
Can I go back?
Yes, I know. What's my x-intercept? Where does that graph cross the x-axis? At negative 2. Honestly, I don't really know why they asked for that here. I mean, they did. Did it work?
Oh, there it is.
Okay. I don't know why they asked for the x-intercept. I mean, why do you don't even need it? But it was part of the question, so we answered it. Yeah.
How did you know what the y one was?
The y-intercept? That's this number right here.
Okay.
So remember, the y-intercept is always the number at the end. The slope is always the number with x. Okay? And if I ask you to find the x-intercept this way, I'm going to make it very simple. I'm going to make it a nice number. Okay? I'm not going to give you a graph like this, or let's say more like this, where now you got to kind of estimate. You're like, wait, is that negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5.5? Like, what is that? I can't tell. I'm not going to give you one that's in between that you can't tell. It's going to be easy to tell what it is. Okay, like this one. Okay. So, any question on 1A? Okay. Let's look at. Let's see. We got example 1B. Okay, so graph the linear equation, find the x-intercept. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to try that one. Do it just like the last one. Okay, get y by itself, get your y-intercept, and then get your slope. Okay, so the equation says 4x minus 2y equals 2. So, and I'm going to just add to the directions. Graph the linear equation in y equals mx plus b. Because like Olivia said, technically that just says graph. So if it's written like that on the test, you could do it the way Maya said. Plug in 0 for x, plug in 0 for y. That's a different strategy. Okay, we're probably going to do an example 1C. I know you guys don't have a grid for it, but I printed extra grids on the back we're not going to use anyway for some practice review problems. So when we do example 1C, I think I'm going to have you guys just put it under like review H. Yeah.
Okay, so you know when you
Okay.
Wait, do you have
So-
to write anything here?
Mr. Hager,
Yes, you want to write this slope, oh, the graph and the y-intercept. Yes, I'll tell you what to put there. Okay, so on the line that says graph, on example 1B, you are going to put the equation y equals, and then whatever you get. Is this in y equals mx plus b?
no.
No. What's the first thing that I move to the other side?
Negative 4x.
The 4x. How do you move it?
Minus 4x on each side.
Minus 4x, minus 4x. What's 4x minus 4x?
0.
0, that's gone. Now on the left side, what do you have?
2y.
That's all you have. It's not quite y equals mx plus b yet, but it's better. It's getting closer. What should I put on the right?
2 minus 4x.
Okay, you're not wrong to write 2 minus 4x, but remember, you're trying to get it to look like that.
Negative 4x minus. Wait, yeah, no, negative 4x plus.
Plus 2, yes. Negative goes with the 4, put that in front. 2 is the positive. Now, we're almost there. What's the last step to get y by itself?
Divide.
By what?
2.
Not 2. Negative 2. And when you do it, go like this right away. Divide, divide, divide. Put it in all three spots so you don't forget. -2, -2, -2. Jaden, what's -2 divided by -2? 1 cancels out. Y equals, what's negative divided by a negative kind of number? Positive. So these are gone. What's 4 divided by 2?
2.
2, and what's next to it?
X.
X. What's positive 2 divided by -2? What's a positive divided by a negative? Negative. 2 divided by 2? 1. On the line that says graph, I don't think I mentioned this on the last one, put down on the line that says graph. Now, do we know the X-intercept yet? No, which intercept do I know? I know the Y-intercept. What is it?
Wait, how'd you get the -1?
Positive 2 divided by -2.
Oh, I was multiplying. Wait, no, I wasn't. How did I get
So what's
-2? What?
what's the Y-intercept?
-1.
-1. Where do I go to do that?
Up and down.
I did it wrong.
And which way is it? Up or down?
Down.
Down. Negative means down 1. Now, what do I use to get to another point? I need the slope. What's the slope?
2x. 2.
Just 2.
Just 2.
Just 2. What's the fraction form of 2?
2 over 1.
2 over 1. The top number is your what?
The rise.
Rise.
Overrun.
What's the bottom number?
Run.
Run. So from that point, I'm going to go 2 units which way?
Up to the...
Up. 2 units up, and then 1 unit right. 2 up, 1 right. Do that a couple times. If you want to go the other way, you can. If that helps you, you don't have to. So I just did it a bunch of times. Now let's draw our line. This is going to be as bad as it would ever be to find an X-intercept. Okay? You'd never have one worse than that. What does it look like if I zoom in? The X-intercept is. Where does it cross the X-axis?
Oh, ew.
Like, ew.
It's like 175.
You what?
What?
It's
What?
like 1 point.
Well, this is
80 something.
What is what?
this is 1.
0.80. It's like 0.80.
Where does it look like? I'm not going to make it that complicated. I'm not going to make it like 0.7. That's too complicated. Think simpler. Where does it look like it crosses?
Half.
Half. Yes, half. Right? I would never give you one that's more complicated than a half. Right? You're never going to have to say, well, it looks like it's 0.3. No. Right? If it's between 2 numbers, it's going to be a half. Always. It'll never be something other than a half. It's too complicated. You can't figure it out easy. Okay? So this one is between 0 and 1. That crosses at 0.5. Right there. 0.5. Could I write 1/2? Is that the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So for your X-intercept, you can put 1/2 or 0.5. That's as bad as the X-intercept will ever be. Other than that, it will always be a nice number. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Well, why is it a half then?
Because it's in between 0 and 1.
I thought it was negative, like...
This is so confusing.
Wait, this is the X-intercept.
You're looking right here, right?
Oh, okay, now I see. That's why I got confused.
Yep. It's right in between 0 and 1.
It doesn't have to follow the line.
The X-intercept?
Yeah.
No, the X-intercept can be anywhere. I mean, you could have an equation where the X-intercept is 0.2, but that's way too hard to see. I'm not going to give you one like that, because you can't tell easily. If I ask you to find it by drawing, I will always make sure that it's either a nice number or 0.5.
Okay.
It'll never be anything other than that. All right, let's try this one. So you don't have a 1C on your notes. What you do have is an example H, and it has a grid. I know it's a little bit small, but use review H. Cross the H out. So take the H, cross it out, and just put 1C.
What?
I thought X2.
So I want you to graph y equals
Wait, what are we doing now?
2x plus 4. 2x plus 4. I don't think that's one we did. We did 2x minus 1. But you know what? We already did a negative 2x. Ah, that's okay. We'll do positive 2x. Y equals 2x plus 4.
Where are we doing this?
But is that already like in the Y equals?
We're doing it under example H. Guys, I already said that.
Where is that?
It's on the back.
I have an example. Yeah, so you just graph it out. Yeah.
I think on mine it says example H on the back.
Mine doesn't.
Yours doesn't say example H under review?
It's under the
No,
number.
it's example 2.
It says example 2.
H is
Oh.
right here.
H,
On the corner.
bottom.
Oh.
Bottom right.
got it.
Bottom right, under review. All the way, bottom right. Where the hole is punched in the bottom right. Does that help? You see it? You got it?
Right here.
Yes, right there.
Don't let it.
Because I didn't make a graph. I didn't make a grid for this one. So we're gonna use a different one. Okay. Step 1. Get your equation in y equals mx plus b.
Check.
Already done. This is where this way is easier. If it's already in y equals mx plus b. So check, done. Step 2, graph your y-intercept. Who can tell me what my y-intercept is?
4.
Y-intercept is 4, everybody agree?
14.
14? 14? Why do you say that?
Because there's a 4.
Because there's a 4, right, so it's 4. Good job. So, y-intercept is 4. Do I need another point?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't draw a line with one point. What do you use to get another point?
The slope.
What's the slope?
2.
2 over what?
1.
1. What does that mean to do from this point?
Go up 2.
Up 2?
Over 1.
Which way's over?
To the right.
Right. Up 2, right 1. Up 2, right 1. Now, if they want the x-intercept, so graph and find x-intercept. So you just make a line for the x-intercept. Do we have the x-intercept yet?
How'd you get the dot?
So we plotted the y-intercept
Oh, never
and then
mind.
used the
I
slope.
see.
Up to.
Which way could I go now to go back towards the x-axis?
Down to left 1.
Down 2, left 1, down 2. Look what we just found. Perfect. That's what's going to happen most of the time. Down 2, left 1, down 2, down 2. All right, so there's our, I'm just drawing it by hand. What's my x-intercept there? -2. Yep. That's how it's going to be most of the time to find the x-intercept.
Wait, why would it be -2?
1, 2 to the left. Okay, any question on that before we finish up with our last one? Okay, so we did 1A, 1B, we invented 1C. All right, let's look at 2. Now, 2 looks like it could be a little tricky, okay, with all those words there. All we have to do is break down what those words mean, and you're doing something you've already done before. There's no difference between what you got to do here and what you've done yesterday.
Mr. What was the problem we were just doing?
1C.
Okay.
Yep, 1C. So, do you guys already have this written on your paper?
Yes.
Okay, so it says a linear function. All that that means is when we draw what we're about to draw, it's a straight line. Okay? So we're drawing straight lines. In which the dependent variable, and I even put a reminder if you forgot, dependent is y. It says the dependent variable goes up 3, for every 1 unit, the x value goes up. So think about that. This is kind of like giving me the what? It says the y goes up 3.
It gives you the slope.
That's the slope right there. This part that I'm underlining, y value increases 3, x value increases 1. It's almost like a rise and a run. That's exactly what they're giving me right there.
Which is which?
Which is which? Rise is always which letter? Think about which way does
Y.
rise go? Y. So it says y value goes up 3. So what's my rise? What's my rise?
3.
3. The y value goes up 3. That's a rise. So up 3. And then it says over 1, which way?
Right.
To the right. How do you know it's to the right? It says 1 unit on the x increase. 1 unit on the x increase. If it's increase, that's positive. That's to the right. So the y value goes up 3 and the x value right 1. Up 3, right 1. That's exactly what that's saying. That's the hard part. Any question on how we just got this? Now, once you have the slope, what do you need first though? What did we always have first? We always had the y-intercept. That's what this is saying. That thing that I just put a box around, that is your y-intercept. Last week we talked about function notation. Remember we did function notation. What did we write instead of y? We wrote f of, and then what letter was usually inside there? X. That's what we learned last week. Instead of y, you can write f of x. So the letter inside the parentheses here is x. Okay? I'll just put an equal sign, make it simpler. The letter in the parentheses is x. What it's equal to, that's your y. So look at that box. 0. What letter is that? That's an x. What's inside the parentheses is an x. The number that it's equal to on the other side
Y.
is the y. So how would you write that as a coordinate? What, comma, what?
0, comma, y. Wait,
No,
0, comma 2.
0, comma, 2. What you just wrote right there, that is your y-intercept. This is telling you the y-intercept. X is 0, y is 2. How do you graph the point 0, 2?
Over 0, up 2.
Yeah, don't go over at all. Over 0, up 2. That's your y-intercept. So in a problem like this, your y-intercept is given to you at the end. This stuff in the beginning is your slope. So now, from this point, which way do I go to get to another point?
Up.
The y value goes up 3, and then what?
No, left, over 1.
And the x value goes to the right 1. Up 3, right 1. Up 3, right 1. Now, how else could I go if I wanted to go back the other way?
3, left.
You could go down 3, left 1. Okay, so all I want you guys to do on this one,
Wait. Oh, you go.
I don't want you to find the x-intercept. I'm not worried about that. Okay. There's my line. Okay, graph, check. Identify the slope. What's the slope?
3.
3 over 1. Yeah, that's my slope. You could write 3, you could write 3 over 1. I give you full credit for either one. Slope. What else does it want me to identify? Y-intercept. That's how it would look on the test. Y-intercept. What's my y-intercept?
2.
2.
What,
Yeah, we're gonna skip x-intercept.
what would it be?
This one's a little tricky because it doesn't cross where I told you it
Okay,
would.
so yours won't be.
No, mine's not gonna be like that.
Okay, wouldn't it be like?
That would be, I think it would be like negative 2/3. Yeah, it would be not a fun one.
That's not cool.
Yeah. So we're not gonna do that one. So actually, I already had it. Slope, we did that. Y-intercept, we did that.
Nice lines.
Okay, any question on that? Yeah,
So for the x-intercept, would it just be 0?
the x-intercept is actually, it's about negative 2/3. But we're not doing that one. Skip it. Skip the x-intercept. Okay, good question though. Any other question? Okay, so reminders. Homework is going to be 3-5 part 2. This is due Friday. Okay, we do not have class tomorrow.
Seriously.
Okay, guys, I'm not done. I'm still standing here. Why are you laughing? You're being mean to me. Don't be mean to me. You're not being. You're being quiet. All right. So periods tomorrow, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the homework again due Friday. Extra credit is the review. Okay, that is also due Friday. It is worth 5 points if you want to do it. Okay. I will be here for extra help only during the day today. Tomorrow I will not be for extra help because I have parent-teacher conferences part 2.